The autumn rain painted gentle patterns on the windows of Pages and Dreams bookstore as Sophia Rose arranged the latest arrivals on the mahogany shelves. At 21, she possessed an ethereal beauty that seemed untouched by the harsh realities of the world. Her long auburn hair cascaded over her shoulders like liquid fire, and her emerald eyes held an innocence that made people pause and wonder if angels truly walked among mortals. Sophia had never experienced the touch of a man, never felt the electric spark of romantic desire that her friends giggled about during their late-night conversations. While other girls her age were busy with dating apps and weekend parties, Sophia found solace in the pages of classic literature and the peaceful atmosphere of the century-old bookstore where she worked to pay for her English literature degree. At the University of Washington, Sophia, could you help this gentleman find something special? Called James, the elderly store manager, gesturing toward a tall figure standing near the rare books section. She turned to see a man unlike anyone who had ever entered their quaint little sanctuary. He stood over 6 feet tall, with jet black hair perfectly styled and piercing, blue eyes that seemed to hold the weight of countless secrets. His charcoal suit was obviously expensive, tailored to perfection, and the watch on his wrist probably cost more than Sophia made in 6 months. Yet despite his intimidating presence, there was something deeply sad in his expression. When two worlds collide. "Good morning," Sophia said softly, approaching him with the same gentle demeanor she showed to every customer. "I'm Sophia. How may I help you today?" Ethan Cross, CEO of Cross Technologies and one of the youngest billionaires in America, had entered the bookstore on impulse. He had been driving past when something about the warm glow emanating from the windows drew him in. Now, looking at the young woman before him, he felt his carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. "I'm looking for a first edition copy of Pride and Prejudice," he said, his voice carrying a slight tremor that surprised him. "It was my mother's favorite book, and I wanted to find the same edition she had when she was young." Sophia's eyes immediately softened with understanding. She had dealt with many customers seeking books for sentimental reasons, but something about this man's request touched her heart deeply. That's such a beautiful way to honor her memory. "Let me check our rare collection for you," she led him to the special climate-controlled section. Ethan found himself studying her graceful movements. Unlike the women in his usual social circle, Sophia seemed completely unaware of her own beauty. There was no calculated charm, no strategic conversation designed to impress him. She was simply being herself, and it was refreshing in a way that left him speechless. "Here we are," Sophia said, carefully retrieving a leather-bound volume from the secured shelf. This is A1813 First Edition, original publisher Thomas Egerton. The binding is in excellent condition, and all the pages are intact. When she placed the book in his hands, their fingers brushed for a moment. Both felt an unexpected jolt of electricity that made them look up and meet each other's eyes. That instant, something shifted in the universe around them. The spark of something beautiful. "It's perfect," Ethan whispered, though he was no longer looking at the book. His eyes were fixed on Sophia's face, memorizing every delicate feature. She would have loved this. "Would you like me to wrap it?" "Especially for you," Sophia asked, surprised by how her heart was racing from such a simple touch. "Actually," Ethan said, making a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Would you have time for coffee after your shift? I'd love to hear more about rare books, and you seem to know quite a bit about literature." Sophia felt her cheeks flush pink. No man had ever asked her for coffee before, especially not someone who radiated such confidence and sophistication. "I don't know if that would be appropriate. I mean, you're a customer, and I'm just the girl who works here. You're not just anything," Ethan said with surprising intensity. "You're someone who understands the value of preserving beautiful things, someone who cares about connecting people with stories that matter. Please, just coffee." "I promise I'm not as intimidating as I might seem." Something in his voice, a vulnerability hidden beneath his polished exterior, made Sophia nod before she could stop herself. "I finish at 5 o'clock. Perfect. I'll wait." The coffee that changed everything. 2 hours later, Sophia found herself sitting across from Ethan at a cozy cafe just down the street from the bookstore. She had changed from her work clothes into a simple cream-colored sweater and dark jeans, her hair now flowing freely around her shoulders. She looked even more beautiful in the soft lighting, and Ethan had to remind himself to breathe. "So tell me about yourself, Sophia," he said, wrapping his hands around his coffee cup to keep them from reaching across the table to touch her again. "There's really not much to tell," she said with a shy smile. "I'm studying English literature. I love old books, and I live with my best friend Luna in a tiny apartment near campus. My life is pretty simple compared to most people. Simple can be beautiful," Ethan replied. "What do you love most about literature?" Sophia's eyes lit up as she began talking about her passion for classic novels. The way authors could create entire worlds with just words, and how love stories from centuries past still made her heart flutter. Ethan found himself completely captivated by her enthusiasm, her genuine joy in discussing something she cared about. "Your turn," Sophia said after realizing she had been talking for 10 minutes straight. "What do you do for work?" Ethan hesitated. In his world, his name was well known, his company constantly in the news. But Sophia's innocent question suggested she had no idea who he was, and he found that refreshing. "I work in technology."
Hi.
"Run a company that develops software for businesses." "That sounds important," Sophia said, impressed. "You must be very smart. Smart enough to recognize something special when I see it," Ethan replied, his eyes never leaving her face. Confessions of the heart as the evening progressed. Their conversation flowed naturally from books to dreams, from childhood memories to hopes for the future. Sophia found herself opening up to this mysterious man in ways she had never opened up to anyone before. "Can I ask you something personal?" Ethan said as they walked slowly back toward the bookstore where her car was parked. "I suppose that depends on what it is," Sophia replied, feeling nervous but excited. "Have you ever been in love before?" The question caught Sophia off guard, and she felt her cheeks burning. "No," she whispered. "I've never even had a real boyfriend. Most guys my age seem to want things I'm not ready for, and I've always been focused on my studies and work." Ethan stopped walking and turned to face her completely. The vulnerability in her admission stirred something protective and tender in his chest. "There's nothing wrong with waiting for the right person, Sophia. In fact, it makes you incredibly special." "Do you think I'm naive?" she asked, looking down at her feet. Ethan gently lifted her chin so she would look at him. "Perfect exactly as you are. I think any man would be lucky to earn your trust and your heart." The sincerity in his voice made tears prick at the corners of Sophia's eyes. "Nobody has ever said anything like that to me before. Then nobody has been paying attention," Ethan said softly. The first kiss that started forever, they had reached Sophia's car, a modest 10-year-old Honda that looked tiny next to Ethan's sleek black Porsche. The contrast between their vehicles seemed to symbolize the vast differences in their worlds, but in that moment, none of that mattered. "Sophia," Ethan said, stepping closer to her. "I know we just met, and I know this might seem crazy, but I feel something with you that I've never felt before. Something real and honest and beautiful." "I feel it too," she whispered, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "But I don't understand it. I don't understand how someone like you could be interested in someone like me." "Someone like me needs someone like you," Ethan replied, reaching up to gently cup her face in his hands. "May I kiss you, Sophia?" She nodded, unable to speak, and closed her eyes as he leaned down toward her. When their lips met, it was soft and tender, and filled with a promise of something extraordinary. Sophia felt as though the whole world had tilted on its axis, as though everything she had been waiting for, without knowing she was waiting, had finally arrived. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily, and Sophia's legs felt weak. "That was my first kiss," she admitted shyly. "Then I'm honored," Ethan said, pressing his forehead against hers. "And I promise you, if you'll let me, I'll make sure it's the beginning of something beautiful." As Sophia drove home that night, she couldn't stop smiling. She had no idea that the man who had just turned her world upside down was one of the most powerful people in the city. All she knew was that, for the first time in her life, she understood what it meant to feel alive, to feel desired, to feel like the heroine in one of the love stories she had always admired from afar. Little did she know that their love story was about to become more complicated and beautiful than any novel she had ever read. 2 weeks had passed since that magical first kiss, and Sophia felt like she was living in a dream. Every evening after her shift at the bookstore, Ethan would appear with that heart-stopping smile, ready to whisk her away to some new adventure. They had walked through Pike Place Market, sharing strawberries and laughter, sat by the waterfront, watching ferries glide across Puget Sound. and spent hours in quiet cafes talking about everything and nothing. Sophia's roommate Luna had noticed the dramatic change in her best friend immediately. The shy, bookish girl who usually spent her evenings reading had been replaced by someone who hummed while doing dishes and checked her phone constantly with a secretive smile. "Okay, spill everything," Luna demanded one morning, cornering Sophia in their tiny kitchen. "You've been floating around here like you're in some romantic movie. Who is this mysterious man you've been seeing?" Sophia blushed deeply, stirring her coffee with unnecessary concentration. "His name is Ethan. He's kind and intelligent, and treats me like I'm something precious." And Luna prompted, sensing there was more to the story. "And I think I'm falling in love with him," Sophia whispered, the admission making her heart race. "Luna, when he kisses me, I feel things I never knew were possible. When he holds my hand, I forget how to breathe. Is this what love feels like?" Luna's expression softened. She'd been worried about Sophia's inexperience with men, but seeing the genuine happiness radiating from her friend made her smile. "It sounds like you've found something special. When do I get to meet this Prince Charming?" Entering his world that evening, Ethan surprised Sophia by inviting her to his penthouse apartment. As they rode the elevator to the top floor of the sleek downtown building, Sophia felt increasingly nervous. When the doors opened directly into his living space, she gasped audibly. The apartment was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Seattle's skyline, and the interior was decorated with modern art and expensive furniture. Everything screamed luxury and sophistication, making Sophia acutely aware of her simple dress and modest background. "Is incredible," she said softly, walking toward the windows. "You can see the whole city from here." Ethan watched her reaction carefully, hoping the grandeur wouldn't intimidate her or change how she saw him. "Sometimes I feel like I'm living in a glass box," he admitted. "Beautiful, but isolated." Sophia turned from the window to study his face. Even in his own magnificent home, she could see that sadness she had noticed the first day they met. "Were you lonely before?" Direct question, asked with such gentle concern, made Ethan's chest tighten. "Always," he replied honestly. "Till I met a beautiful girl in a bookstore who made me remember what it feels like to be human." They had dinner on his private terrace, the city lights twinkling below them like fallen stars. Ethan had cooked, for her himself, a simple pasta dish that tasted extraordinary because of the love and care he had put into preparing it. "I need to tell you something," Ethan said as they sat close together on the outdoor sofa, sharing a blanket under the cool night sky. "I haven't been completely honest about my work." Sophia felt a flutter of concern. "What do you mean, company? Cross Technologies? It's bigger than I made it sound. It's much bigger." "I'm not just an employee, Sophia. I'm the CEO and founder. The business world knows me pretty well." Sophia blinked in surprise, processing this information. "You mean you're actually famous? In certain circles, yes. Wealthy, very wealthy." Ethan searched her face for any change in expression, any sign that this revelation would alter their connection. To his relief, Sophia simply nodded thoughtfully. "That explains the beautiful apartment and expensive clothes. But it doesn't change who you are when you're with me. You're not upset that I didn't tell you immediately." "I understand," Sophia said, snuggling closer to him. "You wanted to know that I cared about you for the right reasons. I'm actually glad you told me now, before I fell any deeper." "Before you fell deeper," Ethan repeated, his heart hammering. "Does that mean you're falling for me?" Sophia rose, looked up at him with those incredible emerald eyes, and he saw his future reflected in them. "I'm already gone," she whispered, "completely and hopelessly gone." Meeting the Dragon Mother the next day brought an unexpected challenge. Catherine Cross, Ethan's formidable mother, appeared at his office unannounced, as was her custom when she sensed her son was making decisions she might not approve of. Catherine was a striking woman in her mid-50s, with perfectly styled silver hair and the kind of commanding presence that made boardrooms fall silent. She had built her own fashion empire before marrying Ethan's father, and had very specific ideas about the kind of woman worthy of the Cross family name. "Darling," she said, settling into the leather chair across from Ethan's desk with practiced elegance, "I've been hearing interesting rumors about you and some little shop girl." Ethan's jaw tightened. His mother's network of social contacts rivaled the FBI for information gathering. Her name is Sophia, and she's not a shop girl. She's a literature. A student who works at a bookstore? How charming, Catherine said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'm sure she's lovely for a temporary distraction, but surely you understand this can't be serious. The Cross family has certain standards to maintain, Mother Ethan said, his voice carrying a warning. I'm 29 years old. I think I can choose my own relationships? Of course, dear. But you have responsibilities. Okay. Your future wife will need to be able to navigate our social world, support your business interests, and understand the demands of our lifestyle. What could some innocent little bookworm possibly offer you? Before Ethan could respond, his assistant knocked on the door. Mr. Cross, Miss Rose is here. She said you were expecting her for lunch. Catherine's eyebrows rose with interest. How perfect. Do send her in. I'd love to meet this fascinating creature who has captured my son's attention. Sophia entered the office. She looked radiant in a simple blue dress that brought out her eyes. Her natural beauty was undeniable, but Catherine immediately noted her modest clothing and slightly nervous demeanor. Sophia, Ethan said, standing quickly and moving to her side. I'd like you to meet my mother, Catherine Cross. Mother, this is Sophia Rose. Mrs. Cross, Sophia said with a genuine smile, extending her hand. It's wonderful to meet you. Ethan speaks of you often. Catherine shook her hand briefly, assessing everything from her handshake to her posture. How lovely. Ethan tells me you work at a bookstore. How quaint. Sophia felt the subtle barb but maintained her composure. I do. I'm also studying English literature at the University of Washington. I find books to be excellent company. I'm sure they are, Catherine replied smoothly. Though I imagine the social demands of Ethan's world might be quite different from what you're accustomed to. Tell me, dear, have you ever attended a charity gala? Do you know how to work a room full of potential business partners? Can you make conversation with senators and foreign dignitaries? Each question was designed to highlight Sophia's inexperience, and both women knew it. Sophia felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment, but she refused to be dismissed so icily. You're absolutely right, Mrs. Cross. I don't have experience with those things. But I believe that genuine kindness and sincere interest in others can bridge most social gaps. And if Ethan needed someone to represent him in those situations, I would certainly learn. Catherine was slightly impressed despite herself. The girl had backbone, at least. How refreshing. Though I wonder if you truly understand what you would be getting into. The scrutiny, the pressure, the constant judgment. It can be quite overwhelming for someone from a simpler background. Mother, that's enough, Ethan said firmly, moving protectively closer to Sophia. But Sophia placed a gentle hand on his arm. It's all right, she said softly. Then she looked directly at Catherine. Mrs. Cross, I won't pretend that I understand your world completely, but I do understand your son. I know that he's brilliant and kind and carries burdens that would crush most people. I know that he feels deeply but doesn't trust easily. I know that when he smiles, really smiles, it's like watching the sun come out after a storm. If that's not enough for you, then perhaps I'm not the right person for your family. But I am the right person for Ethan. The room fell silent. Catherine stared at this young woman who had just challenged her so eloquently and respectfully. Ethan looked at Sophia with such pride and love that his mother couldn't help but notice. The return of the past, just as Catherine was processing Sophia's unexpected strength. Another complication walked through the office door. Diana Ashworth, Ethan's former fiancée, swept in wearing a designer suit and the kind of confidence that comes from a trust fund in finishing school. Diana was everything Catherine had hoped for in a daughter-in-law: wealthy, sophisticated, connected, and ruthlessly ambitious. Their engagement had ended 2 years earlier, when Ethan realized he felt nothing real for her. But Diana had never fully accepted the breakup. Ethan, darling, Diana said, ignoring both Catherine and Sophia completely. I just heard you were back in the dating scene. How marvelous. Diana, Ethan said coolly, what are you doing here? Your mother called me, Diana replied with a brilliant smile. She thought we should catch up. After all, we have so much history together. Sophia felt her heart sink as she took in Diana's polished perfection. This woman belonged in Ethan's world in a way that Sophia never could. She was beautiful, confident, and clearly comfortable with the kind of wealth and power that still intimidated Sophia. I should go, Sophia said quietly, gathering her purse. I don't want to interrupt your reunion. Sophia, wait, Ethan called, but she was already heading for the door. As soon as Sophia left, Diana moved closer to Ethan with predatory grace. Really, darling, a bookstore clerk. I know you enjoy your charitable causes, but don't you think you're taking this one a bit too far? Hearts breaking and healing that evening, Sophia sat in her small apartment, tears streaming down her face as she replayed the scene in Ethan's office. Luna tried to comfort her, but the pain was too deep. Maybe they're right, Sophia whispered. Maybe I'm just fooling myself thinking I could fit into his world. Meanwhile, Ethan was at his penthouse, furious with both his mother and Diana. When he tried to call Sophia, she didn't answer. When he went to her apartment, Luna told him she needed space to think. For 3 days, they stayed apart, both miserable and confused. Ethan couldn't concentrate on work, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Everything reminded him of Sophia's smile, her laugh, the way she made him feel like the best version of himself. Catherine watched her son growing more despondent each day and began to question her interference. She had never seen Ethan so affected by a woman's absence. On the 4th day, Robert Cross, Ethan's father, returned from a business trip to find his family in chaos. After hearing the whole story from Catherine, he shook his head sadly. You've made a terrible mistake, Catherine, he said quietly. That girl makes our son happy in a way I haven't seen since he was a child. Isn't that worth more than all the social connections in the world? The grand gesture, unable to bear another day without Sophia, Ethan made a decision that shocked everyone. Who knew him? He walked into Pages and Dreams bookstore during the afternoon rush, carrying an enormous bouquet of her favorite flowers and wearing his heart on his sleeve. Sophia, he called out as soon as he saw her behind the counter. The entire store fell. Silent, customers and employees alike, stopping to watch the dramatic scene unfolding. Ethan, Sophia whispered, her eyes filling with tears. What are you doing here? I'm fighting for us, he said, walking toward her with determination. I'm fighting for the most important thing in my life. He dropped to one knee right there, in the middle of the bookstore, and Sophia gasped, thinking he was about to propose. Instead, he took her hands in his and looked up at her with desperate sincerity. Sophia rose. I'm not proposing marriage yet, though I hope to someday. I'm proposing something more important. I'm asking you to trust me, to trust us, to believe that love is stronger than social expectations or family pressure or the opinions of people who don't matter. Ethan, she breathed, overcome with emotion. I don't care about my mother's approval or Diana's schemes or what society thinks is appropriate. I care about you. I care about the way you make me laugh, and the way you see beauty in simple things, and the way you make me want to be a better man. Please don't let them take this away from us. Sophia looked down at this incredible man kneeling before her, declaring his love in front of a room full of strangers, and felt her heart overflow with joy. I love you too, she whispered. I love you so much it scares me. Then let's be scared together, Ethan said, standing up and pulling her into his arms. Let's face whatever comes next as a team. When he kissed her there in the bookstore, where they had first met, the small crowd of onlookers burst into spontaneous applause. And Sophia knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. 3 weeks after their reunion in the bookstore, Ethan made a decision. That would change everything. The annual Seattle Children's Hospital Charity Gala was the social event of the season, attended by the city's most influential families, business leaders, and politicians. It was exactly the kind of event where Ethan was expected to appear with someone from his social circle, someone who understood the unspoken rules of high society instead. He arrived with Sophia Rose on his arm. Sophia looked breathtaking in an elegant emerald green gown that Ethan had insisted on buying for her. Her auburn hair was styled in an upswept design that showcased her graceful neck, and her natural beauty outshone every other woman in the room. But more than her appearance, it was her genuine warmth and kindness that made people take notice. Cross watched from across the ballroom as her son introduced Sophia to senators, business moguls, and foreign dignitaries. To her surprise, the young woman handled herself beautifully. She asked thoughtful questions, listened attentively, and spoke with an intelligence that commanded respect. She's quite remarkable, said Margaret Wellington, the wife of the cities. Mayor, as she joined Catherine near the champagne fountain. Your son's young lady has been discussing urban literacy programs with my husband for the past 20 minutes. She has some fascinating insights about community outreach through local bookstores. Catherine raised an eyebrow. This was not what she had expected from the simple bookstore employee who had stumbled into her son's life. Meanwhile, Diana Ashworth circulated through the crowd, trying to plant seeds of doubt about Sophia's suitability. But her attempts at subtle sabotage were failing. The more people met Sophia, the more they were charmed by her authenticity. The test of true love during the gala's silent auction. Sophia noticed a young boy, maybe 8 years old, sitting alone near the children's hospital display. Now the adults mingled and bid on expensive items. This child looked lost and sad, without hesitation. Sophia approached him with the same gentle manner she used with nervous customers at the bookstore. "Hello there," she said, crouching down to his eye level. "I'm Sophia. What's your name?" Tommy the boy whispered. "My mom is getting an award tonight because she donated money to the hospital. She's been talking to important people all night, and I don't know anybody here." Sophia's heart broke for this lonely child surrounded by wealth, but lacking the simple comfort of companionship. "Well, Tommy, I don't know very many people here either. Would you like to be my friend for tonight, or the next hour, while Ethan handled business conversations?" Sophia sat with Tommy, looking at the hospital's photo displays and listening to his stories about his pet hamster and his favorite video games. She didn't care that she was missing the networking opportunities or that her expensive gown was getting wrinkled from sitting on the floor. Ethan found them like this, and the sight of Sophia's natural compassion for a lonely child made his chest tight with emotion. This was the woman he loved, the woman who saw people's hearts instead of their bank accounts. Catherine Cross, who had been watching the entire interaction from across the room, felt something shift inside her own heart. She realized that all her concerns about social status and appropriate matches meant nothing compared to the simple truth she was witnessing. Her son had found someone who would love him and their future children with the pure, selfless love every mother dreams of for their child. Family storms and healing the morning after the gala. Catherine surprised everyone by appearing at Sophia and Luna's apartment with an elegant bouquet of white roses and a handwritten note. "Mrs. Cross," Sophia said, opening the door in her pajamas and immediately feeling underdressed. "This is unexpected. May I come in, dear?" Catherine asked with uncharacteristic humility. "I believe we have some things to discuss." Luna quickly disappeared into her bedroom, leaving the two women alone in the small living room. Catherine looked around at the modest furnishings, the textbooks stacked on every surface, and the photos of Sophia with her family. And she saw a warmth and authenticity that her own palatial home lacked. "I owe you an apology," Catherine said, without preamble. "I've spent so many years worrying about protecting my son from gold diggers and social climbers that I failed to recognize the real thing when it appeared." Sophia blinked in surprise. This was not the conversation she had expected. "Mrs. Krause, I understand your concerns. I know I'm not what you had in mind for Ethan." "My dear girl," Catherine said, sitting forward earnestly, "you are everything I should have been hoping for. You make my son happy, really truly happy. Watching you with little Tommy last night, seeing your natural kindness and grace, I realized that all the social connections in the world cannot replace a good heart." Tears filled Sophia's eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "That means more to me than you know." "It's more," Catherine continued. "I've been thinking about what you said in Ethan's office about understanding him, about knowing who he really is. You're right. You see my son in a way that no one else ever has, and he sees you the same way. That's not something to be dismissed lightly." Just when it seemed like all the obstacles were falling away, a new challenge emerged. Cross Technologies faced a major crisis when a competitor launched a hostile takeover attempt, spreading false rumors about the company's financial stability and Ethan's leadership capabilities. For 2 weeks, Ethan worked 8-hour days, fighting to save the company his father had helped him build. The stress was enormous, and many of his business relationships were being tested. Several board members began questioning whether he was too distracted by his personal life to focus on business. Diana Ashworth saw this crisis as her opportunity to swoop back into Ethan's life. She positioned herself as the supportive ex-fiancé, who understood the pressures of his world and could help him navigate the treacherous waters of corporate warfare. "Darling," she said, cornering Ethan in his office late one evening, "I've always understood the demands of your position. Perhaps it's time to surround yourself with people who can truly support your ambitions." But Ethan was no longer the man who could be swayed by Diana's calculated charm. When he looked up from his desk, exhausted and overwhelmed, all he wanted was Sophia's gentle presence and unconditional love. "Anna," he said firmly, "I appreciate your concern, but I have all the support I need." As if summoned by his thoughts, Sophia appeared in the doorway carrying a thermos of homemade soup and wearing one of his Columbia University sweatshirts over her jeans. She had been bringing him dinner every night during the crisis, staying late to help organize files or simply sitting quietly while he worked. "I'm sorry," Sophia said, noticing Diana. "I didn't realize you had company. I can come back later." "No," Ethan said, standing immediately and moving toward her. Ayana was just leaving. Ayana looked between them with frustration and finally accepted defeat. "Good luck, Ethan," she said coldly before sweeping out of the office. The proposal of Forever 2. Months later, Cross Technologies had not only survived the takeover attempt, but had emerged stronger than ever. Ethan's leadership during the crisis had earned him respect throughout the business community. His relationship with Sophia had proven to be a source of strength rather than distraction. On a crisp Saturday morning in December, Ethan convinced Sophia to take a walk with him through Pages and Dreams bookstore, claiming he wanted to browse the new arrivals. The elderly manager James had mysteriously given them the run of the store before disappearing into the back office. "This is where it all started," Ethan said, leading Sophia to the rare books section where they had first met. "Right here, you changed my entire life." "I remember," Sophia said with a smile. "You were looking for your mother's favorite book." "I was looking for something I didn't even know I needed," Ethan corrected, taking her hands in his. "I was looking for you." He dropped to one knee right there among the leather-bound classics, pulling out a ring box that held the most beautiful emerald engagement ring Sophia had ever seen. "Sophia Rose," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you taught me what it means to love without conditions, to see beauty in simple moments, to be a better man than I ever thought possible. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that fairy tales can come true?" Through her tears of joy, Sophia whispered the word that would bind their hearts forever. Yes, the wedding of dreams 6 months later, on a perfect June day, Sophia Rose became Sophia Cross in a ceremony that perfectly blended their two worlds. The wedding was held in the gardens of the Cross family estate, but instead of an ostentatious display of wealth, it was an intimate celebration of love. Sophia wore her grandmother's simple pearl necklace with her elegant wedding dress, and the ceremony was officiated by the pastor from her childhood church. The guest list included everyone from business executives to Sophia's fellow bookstore employees, from foreign dignitaries to Tommy, the little boy from the charity gala who had become like a little brother to Sophia. Catherine Cross, now one of Sophia's biggest supporters, gave a speech about how sometimes the greatest treasures come in the most unexpected packages. Robert Cross welcomed Sophia to the family with tears in his eyes, grateful to see his son so completely happy. Luna served as maid of honor, crying through the entire ceremony as she watched her best friend marry the man of her dreams. Even James, from the bookstore, was there, beaming with pride at the love story that had begun in his shop. As Ethan and Sophia exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising to love each other through every adventure life might bring, there wasn't a dry eye in the garden. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, their kiss was met with thunderous applause and a shower of rose petals. Happily Ever After begins 5 years later. Sophia Crow sat in the reading nook of their new home, a beautiful but welcoming house where she could display her growing collection of rare books alongside Ethan's modern art. In her arms, she held their 6-month-old daughter, Isabella, who had inherited her mother's emerald eyes and her father's determined spirit. Ethan walked in from his home office, where he now spent more time so he could be present for his family. Cross Technologies continued to thrive under his leadership, but he had learned to balance ambition with the things that truly mattered. "How are my beautiful girls?" he asked, settling beside them and stroking Isabella's soft cheek. "Perfect," Sophia replied, leaning into his embrace. Absolutely perfect. Catherine Cross visited every Sunday for dinner, bringing toys for Isabella. And stories about her own childhood? She and Sophia had developed a genuine friendship. It's built on their shared love for Ethan and their mutual respect for each other's strengths. The bookstore where their love story began had become a special place. For their family, Pages and Dreams now hosted an annual literacy program funded by the Cross Foundation. Sophia volunteered there regularly, sharing her love of reading with children from all backgrounds, as they sat together in the golden afternoon light, watching their daughters sleep peacefully. Ethan and Sophia knew that their love story was far from over. It was really just beginning. They had faced every challenge together, overcome every obstacle, and built a love that was strong enough to last forever. Sometimes fairy tales do come true, especially when two hearts are brave enough to believe in the magic of real, unconditional love. "I love you, Mrs. Cross," Ethan whispered against Sophia's hair. "I love you too, Mr. Cross," she replied, knowing that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, hand in hand, heart to heart, forever and always. The end.